87% of real estate agents are going to fail within the first 5 years of being in the business. Today, we're talking about the top 7 reasons why that happens and how you can avoid it. My name is Mark Ammons.
And I'm AJ Ackerman.
And we're Elevated Agents.
Today, we're going to go over what we believe are the top 7 reasons why agents fail. Now, these are in no particular order, but we are going to start first with the reality of real estate. You know, one of the reasons why agents fail is because they don't have a clear picture or an understanding of what it actually takes to be successful in real estate. And even more importantly, how long it potentially takes, because real estate is very upfront loaded. And so as we start off this conversation, I want to start off with the fact that it takes time. How much time? I don't know. It's different for every single agent. It depends on your past experiences, your ability to take action, who you hang out with, who's supporting you. There are so many factors here, but let me first just kind of help you understand, because I know Mark's going to talk about the financial aspect of this, but we are a front-end loaded business. What that means is, and I can tell you with 100% truth, that whatever you do for the first 12 months is what's going to get you the results in the next 12 months. Now, are there people that get into real estate that get their first contract in 30 days? Of course there are, but the majority of them just don't do that. It usually takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months just to create the momentum that you need. So again, it really depends on who you are, where you are, how long you've been in your area. There's a lot of factors, but I want Mark to talk a little bit about the financial aspect of real estate in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and that's the reality, is that it takes a while to get started. So if you're going full-time, if you're leaving a full-time job and you're going to full-time real estate, not being financially prepared to make that jump and not being financially prepared to not make potentially any income and actually have a lot of expenses going out for those 3, those 6, those maybe 9 months, or maybe you've got a deal or two coming in, but you got to figure out, one, what are your living expenses? How much money do you need to survive without any income coming in for maybe 6 months? Now, if you've got a spouse that works that can still provide some financial assistance, that's great, and that's going to allow you to last a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of agents who get in and don't realize how long it takes to get that first deal, you figure you get in the market on day 1 and you get a house under contract, you're still not getting paid on that for probably 45 days. So no matter what, you've got a lag. And that's the one thing I would tell agents is, before you decide that you want to go full-time into real estate, make sure that you know what your expenses are and how long that you can survive without making any income as an agent. Because you may have the best of intentions, but if you see those bills coming in and no money coming in to support them, that's going to really discourage you. So that, I think, is one of the huge reasons that a lot of new agents fail, is they just don't understand how long it's going to take for them to start replacing the previous full-time income that they have and just not being financially prepared. So, no matter what it is that you have to do, if you want to get into this full-time, start putting that money aside and kind of building up that war chest to be able to support yourself during those initial 3-6 months while you're really building out your business.
Yeah, it's interesting. The first question that I always ask brand new agents is, how long can you go without making any money? And that's a very serious question. And I ask them dead in their eye, because it's interesting. A lot of people, again, people don't know what they don't know. And you see all the glitz and glamour on TV and on YouTube and on social media. And what they don't realize is all the work that's been put up front. And if you hear of anybody who's been successful in real estate, they're all going to tell you that they've been in the business 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And especially depending on what the market is, right? We just got done with a housing boom. Well, it's not that easy to just go and get a house anymore. And so understanding what exactly, how long can you go without making any money, and knowing your numbers. This is a great opportunity to kind of talk from a mindset aspect, because you can use this in your favor. The number 2 reason why agents fail is because they're part-time. And so it's kind of contradictory here, right? Because some people are going to have to work part-time until you can go full-time. And so I always ask them, what would it take for you to be able to go full-time? 1, how long can you go, right, without making any money? And 2 is, what is the number you need to make in order to go full-time? Because that becomes your first target. That becomes that motivational piece, that goal that you can set. And now you can start figuring out, what are the numbers? Great. How many deals do I need to do? And for you brand new agents, just so you know, your first goal as a full-time agent is to do one closing a month. Because typically what I've seen is that if you get one closing a month, most people can quit their job at that point. Because once you've created the momentum for 12 months, right? You do a deal, you do a deal, you do, and it's not quite how it works, right? Maybe you'll do 2 deals in 1 month and 0 in another. But once you get 12 under your belt, not only do you have experience, but you build confidence, and now you create the momentum to go from 12 to 24 and just, basically as big as you want to go. But the number 2 reason that most people fail is because they're part-time. And I want to spend a little bit of time on this because I want you to understand the mindset to this. See, what happens is people are like, they take one foot, right, and they go into real estate, but they've always got this other foot in whatever else they're doing, right? Anything else that you're doing, whether it's maybe you're a nurse, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're a bartender, maybe you're a server, maybe you're in construction, maybe you're a police officer. Like literally, I've known all of those industries to get into real estate. But what happens is mentally, you're thinking to yourself, I can always go back. I always can go back and do that if this doesn't work. I can always go back. There's something called burning the boats. And until you fully burn the boats and are 100% all in, you will never be 100% all in. And so you want to be vigilant about the fact that you're part-time. And that's why if you know exactly how much you need to make and what it's going to take, that will hopefully help you work that extra 2-3 hours, right? If you go to work and you're working 6 to 8 hours, maybe you got to work another 2-3 hours that day, but that is a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain.
Yeah, if you're putting part-time effort into being a part-time agent, you're going to continue to get part-time results. And so if the goal is to go full-time, you can't put in part-time effort and ultimately go full-time. You need to put in full-time effort in addition to what you're doing that's paying your bills in the meantime. And so if you're in that position where you don't have a war chest built up to where you can just quit your full-time job, go full-time into real estate, that's okay. But you need to be treating, if that's the goal, you need to be treating the real estate as though it is a full-time gig. And so whatever that means, if that's giving up time in early in the morning, later at night, on the weekends, whatever that is, put full-time effort into becoming a full-time agent and you'll get there that way. But putting part-time effort in is not going to yield full-time results. And I think that's what a lot of people expect, that they can put in a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there, and eventually they just don't have to, do their other job anymore. And that's probably not really the reality.
No, and I think this is a great opportunity for you to do a little research. If you're experienced or brand new, or you've been struggling for a year, ask other successful real estate agents what their story is, because I'm here to tell you there's a lot of different stories. I'll give you an example. I got into real estate in 2009. In 2008, I lost pretty much everything that I owned. I had $500 in the bank. I had a car repossessed. I had a cell phone, and I had a little bit of cash. And so I was very fortunate that I moved back to Southwest Florida, and I had my friend who allowed me to sleep on an air mattress for 6 months. I had 6 months. Now I know for a fact that he would kick me out in 6 months. At least I didn't want to find out if that was going to happen. And so I got into real estate. I had 6 months. I knew I needed a car and a place to live, and that was my motivation. I didn't date. I didn't go out. I didn't do anything. I worked 6 months on building a career. And guess what? Within 6 months, I was able to do that. I used it as motivation to push me to work 6, 7, 8 hours, to do the things that I was uncomfortable doing. And it was basically non-negotiable. I had to do it. And so what are your non-negotiables? What is going to be your motivation? What is your situation? And put yourself into a position where you have to do it, because if you challenge yourself and you rise to that occasion, that becomes a habit of something that you do over and over and over again. So find out what other people's stories of success are, what they did, how they did it, and tap into that passion, that belief, and that motivation to help you get there, because that is what it's going to take.
Yeah, I think if I was, and I've never been a part-time agent, but for me, I think if I was a part-time agent and I was looking to make that transition in, I would be thinking, what's the best use of the hours that I do have to put towards this? And honestly, one thing that I would suggest is maybe working for free for a really good agent in your city, right? You can do some research. You can figure out who some of the top agents in the city are. Call them, say, hey, if you're doing open houses, if you're going on showings, like I will work for free just to help you, support you, whether it's data entry, whatever that is, but go follow them to an open house and just greet people at the door and see how they interact, and use that time while you are part-time to not really worry about trying to make the money, but try to build the skill sets as well, because that's really what you're trying to do. That initial part of getting into the business is just learning what is entailed in the business, so that one, is this something you even want to do full-time? Right? You might figure figure out that maybe it's not. And so surround yourself with full-time agents while you're a part-time agent, because I can tell you, if you're a part-time agent and you spend all your time with other part-time agents, you're going to continue to get part-time results, right? So if you want to go full-time, you need to surround yourself with agents who do it full-time, work for them for free, help however you can, and just build your skill sets so that when you're ready to make that transition, you're leaps and bounds ahead in terms of getting that full-time income.
I love it. And that leads us right into our number 3 anyways, which is relationships. It's lead generation. Your number one job is to generate leads. Your number one job, number one skill is to create, build, and maintain relationships. You learn how to master that process, and your business can grow any way and as fast as you want. So what does that mean? Well, what happens is a lot of people get into the business and for some reason they're not taught that, or they're afraid of it, right? They're uncomfortable with talking to people because you don't know what you don't know. You don't have the experience, right? And so I get that. But how do you gain experience? You gain experience by doing. So when I first got started in the business, and I'm only sharing this because it helps to have these stories, is I went all in on creating relationships, because guess what? I didn't know anybody. I was in a brand new area. I didn't have a sphere of influence, but I needed people. Like, this is common sense, you guys. We talked about knowing your numbers. Knowing your numbers is the same way here. So what's it going to take for you to close one deal a month? Well, in order to get a closing, what do you need? You need a contract. In order to get a contract, you need appointments. In order to get appointments, you need relationships. And if you've got no relationships, what's the main focus?
Building relationships.
Creating relationships. And so one of the reasons that most people fail is because they forget to invest time in creating, building, and maintaining relationships. And so this should be your number one focus in becoming great at figuring out how to do that, whether it's paid or free.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too is a lot of people assume that when they get their real estate license, everyone that they know, you hear a lot about leveraging your sphere of influence, right? Well, your sphere of influence is not just going to automatically start doing business with you because you went out and got your real estate license. And so I think, part of that too with lead generation is not being a secret agent, is letting people know that you are in the business and reminding them about that. And we've heard that a lot from people where it's like, well, I kind of feel bad, always reminding my sphere of influence that I'm in the industry because they know that I am. Well, they know that, but are you top of mind? When they think real estate, do they think of you? And that's how they're going to ultimately do business with you. Is it's one thing if they know you're in the business, but when they think real estate and they know I'm either going to buy or sell a home, who do they think of first? And if you're not that person, there's still a very good chance that they're not going to do business with you. So find a way to add value to your sphere and to just people in general to create and build those relationships. But you cannot just assume that just because you have a real estate license, everyone knows that. You have to tell them that. So don't be a secret agent. Make sure people know you're in the industry. Remind them of that and find ways to add value so that you can stay in touch on a regular basis without feeling like you're bothering them, right? If you're giving someone something of value, you're not being a bother. So that's, I think, the big thing as well. Don't just assume because you have your license, everyone in the world knows you have your license.
Yeah, and I think number 4 and 5 of reasons why agents fail are going to tie right into this. And so I want to tie into the largest fear that holds people back. The biggest fear that you're going to face as a real estate agent, and I'm here to tell you, everybody has this fear. It's the fear of rejection. And that's one of the reasons why people don't reach out, is because you don't want to be rejected. You don't want to hear no. Guess what? You're going to hear no. And you're very likely going to hear a lot more no's than you will yes, especially in the beginning. And that's okay, but you have to learn how to cultivate the confidence and being okay with that and knowing it's part of the process. So I think we'll spend a little bit of time on that. Here's the thing. Here's the mindset, is that a no just means not yet. Unless somebody completely hangs up on you and tells you, I don't ever want to work with you, or they're already working with an agent, the majority of people, that's not the majority of the time. Most of the time, people just aren't ready, or they're not ready now. And Mark already talked about being top of mind. And so your goal, your job is not necessarily to close a deal right now. Your main focus is to create relationships. People need to know, like, and trust you. And you becoming an expert of that. Actually, I'm going to add one more. It's aware, know, like, and trust. Like, they may not even be aware of who you are yet. And so you've got them get to the point where when they think of real estate, they think of you. And that's going to take at least 6, 7, 8 times for you to communicate with them in multiple ways. And so as you're creating, building, and maintaining relationships, just remember that the goal is not to sell them right now. The goal is that they think of you when they think of real estate. And that's part of the process of it taking time, of you cultivating and building these relationships. And during that process, you're also learning, you're growing, you're using your expertise. What do you think about the fear of rejection?
Yeah, I mean, we all have the fear of rejection. It doesn't even really matter how long you've been in any.
Still have it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's sales in general, right? Like, I think the number one thing, and real estate is not special in this regard. Like, it's just sales in general. Sales is a game of rejection. The cool thing about sales is the more times you get rejected, the more likely it is that you're going to be successful, right? If you hear 5 no's a week and I hear 50 no's a week, guess who do you think is probably actually going to be more successful? Me. Well, I had 10 times I got 10 times more rejection. Yeah, but that means that I was making more attempts, because the more attempts you make, the more no's you're going to get, the more rejection that you're going to get. So, it's hard to do, but you almost have to embrace the rejection, right? There's even a book, I forget the name of the book, but that's the whole premise, is like, how do you get as many no's as you possibly can? Because understanding that the no's lead to the yeses, and that no doesn't, like AJ said, no doesn't necessarily mean no. Most of the time, no means not right now. And that's the reality of it. I'll tell a quick story. AJ and I kind of both got started in sales in a certain way with cold calling. He started his real estate business, and the very first job that I had was cold calling for a transitioning military recruiter. And during the job interview, that was really my job, was to cold call. All day, every day was to cold call. So the guy that I was interviewing with, the regional manager, he said, well, how do you feel about, just picking up the phone and calling strangers and asking them for money? I was like, I've never done it before, but I guess I could do that. He's like, awesome. So he gets up from behind his desk, walks around. He's like, have a seat. So he got up from behind his desk. I had to walk around, sit in his desk, and he had a piece of paper that had 25 names on it. He's like, there's the phone, and there's 25 people that I want you to call them. See if you can get them to give you money, right? Try to invite them to this event. See if they need to hire somebody. So that was the job interview. And the goal there was not for me to make a sale. It was for me to pick up the phone and get over my fear of calling strangers and asking them for money, which is essentially kind of what you're doing, but you're really just building that relationship. So, I got up, turned around, picked up the phone and called 25 people and asked them to do business for a company that I didn't even work for. But that's part of just getting over it, is just doing it. The only way to really beat the fear of rejection is to get rejected so many times that you just don't even notice it anymore, that you almost kind of look forward to it, to where you just brush it off and you're on to the next one, because it is a numbers game.
Yeah, I'm about to damage this whole thing. So, what's one thing I want to bring up, and because we had this conversation before we even started this video, and this is something that's really important for you to understand. I did not want to cold call for the rest of my career. It was a means to an end. I talk about motivation. I like to plant seeds in my head. I like to plant goals that motivate me to do something so that I don't have to do it anymore. And so until you build your sphere up to a certain point, this is what's necessary in the beginning to get the train going. Right? Like, it takes a lot of energy to get a train to move at the speed that it does. But once it's moving at full speed, it's extremely difficult to stop it. And so remember that having this long-term plan of creating passive or residual or creating a team, like, that's all great and that's possible. But it's going to take all the heavy lifting, the building in the beginning. And so creating this momentum is the key to that long-term focus. So if you're like, well, I don't want to do that long-term, great. I didn't do it long-term. I did it short-term in order to get me big results long-term. And so I just want to make sure that you understand that. I know you probably want to add something to that, because it's such a great concept.
Yeah, to me, in order to make real estate a long-term career, right, and for it to not be a job, there's 2 things that you're ultimately going to have, and that's leverage and scale. And so leverage is the ability for you to take an input and get more output by using technology, by using resources, by using other people. And then scale is the ability for you to kind of be in multiple places at once, and not have to trade time for money. And so, like AJ said, though, you have to have something to leverage and to scale first. You can't leverage and scale nothing. So that's the big thing, is like, getting from 0 to 1 is probably the biggest hurdle, right? I mean, there's the joke about, the first million's the hardest, but the first sale is the hardest, because it takes everything that you've got to get that first one. But once you get one, going from 1 to 2, a little bit easier. Going from 2 to 4, a little bit easier. And then it starts to grow from there. So that's the, hustle and grind is not necessarily a long-term 30-year sustainable business model, but hustle and grind initially to get you to where you have some listings that you can leverage, to where you can now go out and start circle prospecting, and that's going to take you from 1 to 2 to 3, and then now you've got 3 houses that you can leverage. So it just takes time to build that, but don't expect to go from 0 to 10 with no effort and no energy. It does take time to get there, but yeah, it's not a long-term play to continue to hustle and grind, but if you do it up front, it gives you something that you can then leverage, then scale, and then start treating it more like a business owner, where initially you're going to be the employee. You're the employee, you're the business owner, but initially you have to act like an employee so that later you can act like a business owner.
Yeah, and I want to end this for a challenge for you. Let's give you a little bit of extra value here. I give you 2 challenges as a new or even experienced agent. The first challenge is I challenge you to get 20 no's a day. Now, that's a huge challenge, but it's one of those things that I have a very good friend who built a very successful business. He's a multimillionaire, and that was his goal. His goal was to get 20 no's a day, not 20 yeses, 20 no's, because again, he knew that based on pure volume, eventually somebody was going to say yes. And my other challenge is this. It's 1. Focus on getting 1 listing. Mark nailed it on the head. Like when I go into sales production, which I'm in right now, I focus on 1. How do I get 1 listing? And then how do I take that 1 listing, give amazing service to the seller, promote it like crazy, and then get 2 from it? Because 1 can turn into 2 and 2 can turn into 4. And the problem is we focus on getting 12, 24, 100 when all you got to do is focus on 1, because guess what happens? Once you get 1, you just focus on getting another one, and then focus on getting another one. You become a master at getting 1, you'll become a master at getting many. And that happens to lead us right into number 5, and that is the lack of support and choosing potentially the wrong brokerage to help you. And I think this is really important to understand, because so many people switch brokerages. 1, a lot of agents switch brokerages too quickly. I will say that. A lot of them don't put in the time and energy they need, but then a lot of people stay longer than they should at a brokerage that's not helping them get to where they want to go. And Mark talked about leverage. And so I kind of want to start with the concept of leverage the experience of the people that you sign up with. Before you decide what brokerage you should go to, you should interview them, because listen, anybody's going to pretty much hire you. It's funny. They treat it like an interview, but pretty much every brokerage is going to hire anybody that comes to them. So just know that you need to interview them. You need to find out, how are you going to help me grow my business? I have 5 questions that I tell people they should ask before choosing a brokerage. 1 is, what's the vision of the company? What's the culture? Do they care about your lifestyle? How are they going to support you? Technology, administration, commissions, marketing. And 5, how are they going to help you grow your business? Because if you align yourself with the right group, your confidence will go up, because you don't know what you don't know. So when I first got started in the business, I used the fact that I was on a team. And I used their knowledge to my benefit. Every question that was asked to me I didn't know, I said, you know what? I'll find out for you. And I always use the fact that, hey, listen, I work with one of the top teams in the country. I work with one of the top brokerages in the country. So I'll be sure to ask one of the experts how to help you. You see how that works? Leverage. The other thing is from a support standpoint, I had no issue taking action. So taking action for me was never a problem, but I wanted to know that if I had a question, I could go and ask. And so my broker was awesome. Every single time I had a question, hey, I need this answered. Hey, can you help me with this? Hey, can you help me fill out a contract? Hey, as I was moving through the process. And the other really beautiful thing, because we talked about being front end loaded, I can specifically remember probably 4, 5, 6 months in the business, I kept asking, am I on the right track? Am I on the right track? Because I was tracking my numbers. I was doing a lot of work, and I wasn't seeing the immediate result. And we all suffer from wanting to see that immediate gratification, and having somebody to help you say, you're doing a great job, or, you know what, listen, you're sucking. You need somebody to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Really be sure that when you choose the brokerage, or you choose a team, or you choose your mentor, that you have somebody who's going to push you, keep you accountable, and help you. And also, I want to make sure you understand that they're not going to do the work for you. You need to plug in. You need to take action. If they tell you to do something, you need to do it and then come back. Listen, here's the percentage that I believe that you should be doing, is that 80% work mode. 80% of your time should be spent creating, building, and maintaining relationships. The other 20% should be learning. 80% of your time should be creating, building, and maintaining relationships, because without the relationships, you have zero business.
Yeah. Yeah, when it comes to choosing a brokerage and giving you support, the brokerage cannot get you from 0 to 1, right? They really can't. That's going to be sheer work on your behalf. And where I think partnering with the right company and where that can come in and the right people is once you can prove that you can do the work, that you can do the inputs to get in, that's when you can start looking at a company's ability to help you leverage that, and how much easier do they make it to go from 1 to 2, from 2 to 4, from 4 to 8, and so on. But no one can get you from 0 to 1 other than yourself. That just takes raw work and effort on your behalf. But once you get there, what tools and resources are going to be in place? And, I think sometimes a brand new agent will look at going to maybe a traditional 100% model that's just very, very cheap. It allows them to keep the most money, but there's nothing in place there that's going to allow them to go the same amount of effort it took to get from 0 to 1. It's going to take to get from 1 to 2 and 2 to 4 and all of that, with no benefits of being able to scale and leverage that success. So, looking at different options, the brokerage that we're with, LPT Realty, if that's something you're interested in talking about, we think we have a lot of support for agents that once you get that first listing, once you get that first buyer, there's a lot of things that we can do to help you scale that with a lot less time, effort, energy on your behalf. But that's just something that you have to explore and figure out how it is you want to support, how it is you're going to grow your business. But just understand that at the beginning, it's 100% up to you until you get that first buyer, that first listing. You just got to keep grinding it out. And that's just kind of, again, getting back to the reason number one, just understanding the reality of real estate. And that's just what it is.
Yeah. One of my pet peeves is when agents say, well, they don't give me leads, or I want to go to a place that has leads, or how are you going to give me leads? Honestly, it's like it cringes when I hear people say that. And the reason is it's great when the brokerage or your team can supplement. It's great when they can add an extra couple deals a year. So don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. If you join a team to get started, right, and the split is 50-50 and they're providing you leads, if they're not teaching you to fish, then you're never going to be able to go out on your own, and you're going to continue to pay huge amounts as you grow in your experience. Find a place that teaches you to fish, to survive on your own, to help you grow the business. If you temporarily have to join a team and that's the way it's set up, I get it, but do not ever rely on somebody else to pay your bills. You need to learn how to fish and provide food for your family. And that is a gift that you can give yourself that will keep on giving, meaning God forbid something happens and your business does fall apart. The market crashes. Guess what? Your skills, your experience will never go away. One of the most beautiful things about sales and real estate is that, guess what? You can always go do sales. Doesn't matter where you live, where you are, you can always plug yourself in, take your skills and create an income from that. But if you don't learn how to fish, then you're never going to catch anything.
Yeah. I want to take that and segue into our next one, which is wasting time, right? So we talk about needing to spend a lot of time up front to build, generate, and maintain relationships and put your effort towards that, as well as learning. And here's the problem, though, is a lot of people will stay very, very busy, right? You get your real estate license and you are busier than you have ever been. But when you track your time at the end of the day and you look back at what you spent that time on, what percentage of your time was actually spent on revenue producing activities? Because at the end of the day, that's what pays your bills, revenue producing activities. If it's an activity that does not have the potential to generate revenue, it's likely not the best use of your time up front. And so one of the traps that a lot of us fall into is being busy instead of being productive. And particularly if it's the first time that you've been self-employed, where you're working for yourself and you don't have someone who's giving you certain tasks that have to be completed. As when you're an employee, you've got certain tasks that you have to be completed. And as long as you're completing those tasks, you're doing what you're supposed to do. As an agent, as any kind of self-employed business owner, it's up to you to figure out what tasks you need to be doing and figuring out how you're going to take the 6, 8, 10, 12 hours a day that you're working and distribute those amongst the different activities that have to be done. And I would suggest to you that the number one thing you need to focus on are activities that have the potential to generate revenue. And so trying to make sure that you have the best Zillow profile and LinkedIn profile and the prettiest logo, and making sure that your brand colors are in alignment, and start working on, all of these different things that make you feel like you're doing something. But at the end of the day, do not bring in business, those are things that you need to be spending less of your time on. I'm not saying that they're not important, but just understand that if you spend the first 6 months doing those types of activities, you're probably going to have to get out of the business because you're just not going to have anything coming in. So focusing on where you spend your time and doing it on high value activities is going to be the best use of your time, and that's what's going to allow you to actually succeed and get business. And then once you've got business, you've got some time and a little bit of breathing room to then start cleaning up, making that logo a little bit prettier and all the different things that you have to do. But that's the number one thing I see people failing on from the execution standpoint is they're like, gosh, I'm working so hard. I'm working 12 hours a day. Yeah, but let me see how you're spending those 12 hours a day. And if it's all things that do not have the potential to generate revenue, then you're probably not going to be generating revenue.
Yeah, wasted time is lack of planning and lack of focus. Yeah. That's what wasting time is. And, it's really incredible. The best year I ever had, I actually went on more vacations I ever went on. And so the more productive you get and the better that you plan and the more systems you put in place as you grow, you actually will get time back, but you have to generate all that time. I talked to you guys earlier about 80-20. 80% of your time needs to be lead generation, create, build, maintain relationships. Invest the other 20% of the time building these other systems, building those platforms as you go. Because here's one thing that I know for a fact is a lot of times we put a lot of time and energy into what we think is going to be, this is it, right? This is going to be the lead generation thing. You're going to build this website and the website's going to be awesome. And then you invest 3 months into building this website and then you have no leads. Nothing's happening from it. And so you don't know what's going to actually work or what will work. But what you do know what will work is you picking up the phone and making a call. It's you reaching out to people on social media. It's you knocking on doors. It's you going to events. Whatever that is for you, make sure that you have a plan. And so if you're full-time and you're working, let's just call full-time 50 hours a week nowadays, all right? We'll just call it what it is. If you have 50 hours a week to work, then you better invest 80% of those 50 hours into some sort of relationship building, whatever it is, open houses. Again, there's a lot of different ways. This is not the video for that, but you need a plan. You need focus. You need to put this time blocking in your schedule and you need to keep accountable to it. Now, every week's not going to be perfect, okay? So if you have an off week or an off day, don't shame yourself and quit. Keep going, keep pushing, keep working towards being more productive. Because if you've never been productive, this is going to take time. It's going to take effort, but have a plan. One thing about working out, right? So some people, you'll have somebody, we're going to use physical for a minute here. So working out, going to the gym. Let's pretend for a second you haven't been to the gym in 5 or 10 years, right? Now, maybe you were athletic in high school, or maybe you've been athletic before, but you've been out of it for 5, 10 years. You've gained that extra 15, 20 pounds. You're a dad or your mom, whatever the case may be, right? You're like, all right, I'm going back to the gym. I'm all in. And then you commit to going to the gym 5 times a week for an hour and a half. And you're like, rah. But what happens? One, you go to the gym the first day. Maybe I'm a 48-hour guy. So maybe you make it to the gym the first day and you kick butt. It's awesome. You go the second day, but what happens on day 3? You're sore. Oof. It hurts. You don't want to go. You're tired. What happens is you burn out way too fast. Same thing here with lead generation and creating, building, and maintaining relationships. Some people can go all in. Some people need to start slow. So if you need to start with that 1 hour, I love the number 1, by the way, 1 hour of productive relationship time, meaning you're not scrolling through TikTok. You're not checking your Facebook. You're not checking email. You're not going to the bathroom because you don't feel like doing it. Like literally people come up with the excuse of going to the bathroom when they really don't have to go. It happens. Come up with a plan, come up with focus and build up to it. But one of the reasons why most agents fail is because they waste time. And then what happens? They waste time. 6 months later, a year later, they run out of money, right? You see how this all ties together? And so we put all this package together because if you focus on all of these areas on, one, deciding you're not going to fail, you're going to succeed. And what is it going to take for you to succeed? Well, it's going to take you to make sure that you don't fail in these 7 areas.
Yeah. Here's a hack that I would give you that I have found works extremely well for me personally. And that is what I would venture a guess to say is that the most productive activities that you're going to do all day in terms of one that are actually going to bring you income, actually going to bring you revenue, are probably the things that you want to do the least. So you need to do those things first, because here's what happens is You have a list of 10 things that you need to do that day. 3 of them are actually important. 3 of them actually have a chance to bring business into what you're doing. But what happens is you spend the first 8 hours of the day focusing on those 7 things that maybe you enjoy, that are easier, that don't take a lot of mental energy, that have no chance of rejection, no chance of failure. And so you spend your time doing those, and then guess what happens? You run out of time, right? You got to go pick the kids up. Wife gets home. You got to make dinner. All these different things happen, and you just didn't get around to that. And then the next day, you go through the same thing over and over again. You make a list of a new 10 things, and those 7 that you did yesterday, you replace them with 7 other things that you want to do. And those 3 things that you should be doing that are actually going to generate business, you just always run out of time. You're not able to invest the full amount of time that you want. Fix that by doing those things first, right? Do the things that you don't want to do, that you're not looking forward to the most. Get them out of the way early in the day, because those are probably the things that are actually going to generate income, actually going to generate revenue, actually grow your business. And then use the rest of the time after that is done and 100% done to then work on the other things that you enjoy, but that probably aren't going to actually bring you business.
Yeah, that leads right to number 7. Lack of inspiration, lack of motivation. The reason I brought inspiration to this is because only you can motivate yourself. And so you want to surround yourself with inspiring people, inspiring videos, and whatever it is that inspires you to get moving. But you also have to figure out what actually motivates you. And sometimes what motivates you is going to be the fear of failing, right? Sometimes the motivation is going to be, well, if I don't do this, then this could happen. But I also want you to look at the positive visions of what could happen, of what is possible. But it is you versus you. Nobody else. You need to stand up and look in the mirror and take personal responsibility and say, you know what? It's up to me. Like, you are an entrepreneur now. You're a 1099 employee. Nobody is going to do it for you, and you are going to be completely responsible for your success the long term. And so I hope that you've made that decision to finally stand up and decide, you know what? I'm all in. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do whatever it takes, no matter how painful it is. And hopefully you'll finally become the person you need to be. And I want Mark to talk about this a little bit, but I want to just remind you guys the path of success. The path of success is this: is 1, you need some clarity. Have a clear vision. We talked about this in the beginning. A clear vision of what you want your real estate business to look like. The next step, is it 1 home a month, 2 homes a month, 4 homes a month? It doesn't matter. However big the dream is, it can be. But once you have that vision and you know where you want to be, the second part is the growth, is who do you need to become? Who do you need to become to be this salesperson? What is your attitude, your personality? What are your habits? What are your behaviors? Like, seriously, this is magic for you. And if you start putting in these productive things to help you become the person, then you'll finally get the results that you want. And the last part is the taking action, the success. What action steps do you need to take daily to hit your goals?
Yeah. I think one of the things that would do everyone in everything that they do a lot of benefit is to get rid of excuses. Get rid of blame, get rid of excuses, because the reality of being self-employed, the reality of running your own business is this: if you are successful, it's because you did that. It's the work that you put in that got you there. The other reality that a lot of people don't want to face is if you're not successful, you did that. You got yourself there, right? This whole thing is up to you, and what the level of effort and determination and discipline that you put in is going to determine the outputs that you get. And it's so easy to blame external circumstances, right? The market sucks. Okay, interest rates are high. Whatever the case, that my mentor didn't spend enough time answering my questions. Like, whatever these excuses that we can all easily generate are, they're not helpful. They don't move you forward. They might make you feel better, and that's what's called your psychological immune system, right? We all have this psychological immune system where the same reason we don't like fear of failure, we don't like feeling as though we have failed. So we don't want to be rejected. We don't want to feel rejected ourselves. We don't want to feel like we did something and it didn't work. AJ and I can talk to this. We try stuff every day that doesn't work. Like, we probably fail more than most people I know. You may not necessarily see that, but like, we fail all the time, and we kind of look forward to it. We're just the same way. I think it was Thomas Edison that we took him 10,000 tries to figure out the light bulb, and it wasn't that he failed 10,000 times. He just found 9,999 ways that didn't work, and that's okay. But you can't blame external things for your internal failures. And it's a hard truth, but that's what you have to come around to, is understanding that your success because of you, your failure because of you. And so if you don't like where you're at, that's a mind shift a mindset shift that you need to make and own that, take responsibility, and just be open to figuring out what it is you're doing that's not working. What are the things you're doing that are working? Leverage the things that are working, double down on those, and keep doing that. But taking personal responsibility in this business is probably the number one thing that's going to get you to where you want to go long term, is not blaming, because eventually you have so many things to blame that you're like, cards are stacked against me. This whole thing just isn't meant to happen. And then you quit.
Don't quit. You only fail if you quit, and it's you versus you. I wanted to do a mic drop, but I don't want to hurt these mics. You guys, make sure you hit subscribe. If you enjoyed our content, if you enjoyed this, if you found this helpful, please hit subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help you out. These were the 7 reasons why agents typically fail. And so please do me a favor. If you need to go back, we'll cut this thing up. But we are sending you lots of love, sending you lots of success. We know that you are capable and able to reach any goal that you want to hit, any dream that you want to live. It's going to take one day and one step at a time.
We love you guys. Appreciate you watching. We're going to see you on the next one. And just go out and conquer the day.
Do it.
See you guys.